a real want to be in the spotlight kind of performer. I'm more of a singer-songwriter guy.
Alan Jackson, the quiet Georgia boy who grew into a giant of country music, is once again making headlines. But this time, it's not about a record-breaking album, a sold-out tour, or another Hall of Fame induction. On September 26, 2025, news broke that shook the very foundation of country music. The man who gave us Chattahoochee, Remember When, and Where Were You When the World Stopped Turning, is now facing a truth that no one expected him to admit. For years, fans saw him as unshakable, tall under his cowboy hat, his voice carrying across arenas, his songs etched into the fabric of American life. But behind that steady presence, Alan was fighting a battle his audience could never see. And now, as he steps forward with a revelation that could change everything about his career and his legacy, Nashville is holding its breath. The update is not just shocking, it is heartbreaking, because it isn't about music at all. It's about the man behind the music, and the reality that even legends cannot escape time, pain, and fate. Everyone thought Alan Jackson would sing forever, but the truth behind his latest headline is much darker.
Long before Alan Jackson became a country icon, he was simply Alan Eugene Jackson, born October 17, 1958, in Noonan, Georgia. His childhood was far from glamorous. Alan's family lived in a small house built around his grandfather's old tool shed. Money was always tight, but what they lacked in wealth, they made up for with love, faith, and resilience. Alan was a quiet boy, often retreating into his own world. He didn't grow up with stages or bright lights. His earliest music came from church hymns and the old country records his parents kept. Legends like Hank Williams and Gene Watson filled his ears, planting seeds of a dream far bigger than the dirt roads of Georgia. At just 12 years old, Alan picked up a guitar and taught himself to play. By his teenage years, he was already writing songs, scribbling them in notebooks no one else ever saw. Still, he kept his dreams close to his chest. He worked odd jobs, in construction, in car sales, even repairing shoes, while quietly carrying that fire for music inside. One thing changed the course of his life forever. Denise, his high school sweetheart. She believed in him more than he believed in himself. They married young, and when she once met Glenn Campbell while working as a flight attendant, she slipped him Alan's demo tape. That bold move would open doors Alan never thought possible. From the start, his life was shaped by simplicity, hard work, and the faith of a woman who saw greatness in him before the world ever did.
When Alan and Denise finally moved to Nashville in the early 1980s, the odds were stacked against him. Nashville was a city that crushed dreamers daily. Record executives were quick to dismiss yet another hopeful boy with a guitar. But Alan Jackson was different. He didn't chase flashy trends or bend his sound to fit the moment. He leaned into something older, purer, a voice that carried the ache of Hank Williams, but with a freshness that felt entirely his own. His big break came in 1989, when he became the very first country artist signed to Arista Records. Just a year later, his debut album, Here in the Real World, put him on the map. The title track climbed the charts, and suddenly this Georgia boy who once fixed shoes was standing shoulder to shoulder with George Strait and Randy Travis. The 1990s saw Alan's star rise even higher. Albums like Don't Rock the Jukebox and A Lot About Livin' and A Little About Love produced hit after hit. Songs like Chattahoochee weren't just radio favorites, they became the soundtrack of American summers. With his signature blend of honky-tonk tradition and heartfelt storytelling, Alan Jackson became the voice of the people. By the end of the decade, he wasn't just another country singer, he was a cultural icon. His words carried the heartbreak, the joys, and the resilience of everyday Americans. Fans didn't just listen to Alan Jackson, they lived through him. But with fame came pressure. The spotlight was blinding, the schedules relentless. Even as his career soared, the cracks were beginning to show. Cracks that no chart-topping hit could hide.
Behind the cowboy hat and the smile, Alan Jackson was carrying burdens that most fans never saw. Fame came with its own price, and for Alan, the weight was heavy. In the late 1990s, his seemingly perfect marriage to Denise cracked. They briefly separated, and the world caught its first glimpse that even the country star who wrote about family and faith was not immune to personal storms. Alan later admitted his mistakes, confessing he had to learn humility and accountability. Those struggles seeped into his music, giving songs like Remember When a depth that could only come from pain and healing. But it wasn't just his personal life. The music industry itself tested him. As Nashville moved further into pop country, executives pushed Alan to change, to modernize. He refused. His insistence on keeping fiddles and steel guitars alive made him a hero to traditionalists, but often placed him at odds with the machine that made him famous. Then came his most devastating battle, his health. In 2021, Alan revealed he was living with Charcot-Marie tooth disease, a degenerative nerve condition that slowly robs the body of balance, mobility, and strength. For years, fans noticed stumbles on stage, the way he leaned on the microphone stand a little too heavily. Finally, Alan admitted what he could no longer hide. This disease had no cure, and it was changing his life forever. The revelation stunned the world. The man who had carried generations with his songs was now facing the cruel reality that his own body was betraying him. Nashville was shaken, and fans held their breath, fearing the day Alan Jackson might be forced to leave the stage for good.
On September 26, 2025, the news that fans had long feared finally became reality. Alan Jackson stood before the world and admitted the toll of his illness had grown too heavy. Touring, the lifeblood of his career, the place where fans felt closest to him, was no longer possible. He confessed that even walking across the stage without stumbling had become a battle he could not always win. It wasn't a farewell dripping in pity. True to his character, Alan spoke with grace, honesty, and gratitude. He told fans that his upcoming performances might be his last, but that he would continue writing and recording for as long as his body allowed. He wanted to give everything he had left to the music that had given him everything. The announcement sent shockwaves through Nashville. George Strait called him the heart of real country music. Dolly Parton said his songs would remain a healing gift long after the spotlight faded. Younger artists like Chris Stapleton and Casey Musgraves admitted their careers would not exist without his influence. The Grand Ole Opry held tribute nights where his classics echoed like prayers through the rafters. But the most powerful reaction came from the fans. Across America, people gathered in bars, living rooms, even church halls to sing his songs together, as if to carry his voice when he no longer could. Social media flooded with memories, wedding dances to Remember When, long road trips with Chattahoochee, tears shed with Where Were You When the World Stopped Turning. For millions, this wasn't just an artist stepping back. It felt like losing a member of the family. And as Alan's trembling voice admitted that his time on stage might soon be over, it was as if a star was fading before their eyes, slowly, painfully, and yet with a brilliance that would never be forgotten.
Alan Jackson's story is not simply about a superstar who sang country songs. It is the story of a man who turned honesty into art, who carried the traditions of a genre when others abandoned them, and who gave millions a soundtrack to their lives. From the dirt roads of Noonan, Georgia, to the grandest stages in Nashville, his journey has always been rooted in three pillars: family, faith, and authenticity. Fans remember him not just for his 35 #1 hits or 75 million records sold, but for the way his songs became companions in their own lives, songs that played at weddings, funerals, graduations, and quiet nights of reflection. Fellow artists call him a pillar, a defender of tradition, a storyteller whose words stitch together the joys and sorrows of ordinary people. His family calls him a husband, a father, and a man who never let fame steal away the boy he once was. And fans, they call him family. Even as his body weakens, his voice endures. In the radios of pickup trucks, in the hymns of small-town churches, in the tattoos etched on loyal fans, and in the memories of every person who ever sang along to Chattahoochee with the windows rolled down. Alan Jackson's revelation may mark the slowing of his career, but it does not mark the end of his legacy, because Alan Jackson was never just a performer. He was a storyteller, a healer, a reminder that country music at its best is simply life itself, put to melody. And long after the lights of the stage fade, his songs will remain timeless, eternal, alive.